yours in while you tell me what you've had for breakfast, if that's
My name is Emily Scarrott and I'm an artist from Wolverhampton. So my practice involves a little bit of sculpture, a little bit of performance and a little bit of writing, but I like to just mess about with whatever takes my fancy. I'm interested in world building and storytelling through my practice, which might be materially. For example, I've recently been making chainmail because I'm interested in the relationship between that material and fantasy, which also links to the Black Country, which is where Tolkien based Mordor. Last year I was the lead artist on the first More Art Inc., which was a programme developing local artists from Wolverhampton. I'm also part of a studio group called Free House, which is based in Digbeth in Birmingham. In the studio at the moment I'm thinking about fan fiction, science fiction and supernatural visitation. The item I've chosen from the collection is Bela Lugosi Journal by Joe Tilson from 1964. I found it quite difficult to choose a piece from the collection to talk about, but I eventually chose Bela Lugosi Journal because I'm interested in the ideas in it, and I think that there's a lot of similarities between the ideas that Joe Tilson's working with and the way that I work. So there's a lot of parallels between political events which would have been happening in the 60s and also science fiction or horror and building relationships through the imagery between those things. It was quite interesting actually because in the online blurb they talk a lot about the front cover of Bela Lugosi Journal like it's a real thing, and then I was googling to see if it was a real thing and I couldn't find anything except for this image over and over again, so who knows if that's real, but it sounds like something I would want to be real. So there's parallels in the work between Miss Police World and also the bodice of Barbarella, and I thought that was quite interesting because you're kind of looking at sexploitation versus kind of colonial behaviours and how that might happen in the real world but also through the media we consume and pop culture. So the work also contains a newspaper clipping of Buck Nelson, who claims he was taken to Mars, Venus and the Moon in a dome-shaped saucer. I'm really interested in alien visitation or invasion at the moment because of a residency that I did in Chile. So I'm not sure if I identify with having a Black Country accent. I think that probably a lot of people in my generation grew up trying to avoid having one, and often I find that different people have different perspectives about whether I do have a Black Country accent or not, although I know it's not the strongest. But recently I was in Cornwall and I bought an ice cream from a lady who's from the Black Country, and her family had recently moved back here to purposefully pick up the accent because they wanted a strong Black Country accent. I thought that was really interesting. I think that there's an interesting relationship between accents across Wolverhampton and the Black Country and Birmingham, and people from the Black Country get quite protective over their accent and its difference from the Birmingham accent. That being said, there's an interesting relationship as well between the artists and the way that we work between Wolverhampton and Birmingham. I think it's really important to nurture art practice in Wolverhampton itself, so we don't feel that we should constantly shift over to Birmingham to find space for our practice. I think it's really important that we've got an art gallery in Wolverhampton and that it stays in Wolverhampton. There's obviously a huge collection here that I've engaged with as a child through to becoming an artist and it becoming part of my working life as an artist. That being said, it's quite a confusing place because there's often a distance between these kind of global pop art collections and what we're doing locally. Maybe separation occasionally between what counts as a famous artist and a local artist that I find quite interesting.